Okay, so hello.
Oh,
So this is Theta N, also known as Theta to the nth degree, my little play on Thetan. We're here with Patricia Krenik, who is one of the original Dianeticists. Very excited to have you. All right, so Pat, we're going to start with just a couple of basics. Tell us where you are from originally and what's your current case and training level, if you don't mind.
oh my. That's two questions. The first one was where is it from originally?
Yep, where
I
are you
mean,
from?
was I born or raised
Yeah,
or
born and raised. Where are you from in the country?
Washington State? It's close enough. Mostly Washington State, California a lot too.
Okay.
LA, San Francisco.
Okay. And then your current case and training level?
I really don't know. I've done the LRH bridge and I've done about half of the CBR bridge. So I'm somewhere up there on the CBR bridge, 16, something like that.
Okay. So,
Numbers don't matter much anymore.
okay. And then as far as training, official training, let's say,
Official. I mean, in the church? In the church,
what?
I went to the St. Hill Special Briefing course. Most of the training I've done since then has been out in the free zone.
Okay. And what have you done in the free zone as far as training? Let's say comparable to a
Well,
church
I can deliver
class.
the L's,
Okay. So that would be equivalent to,
but I don't consider myself a class 12. I'm not that good, but I can deliver the L's.
okay, good. But you did not do the class 8 course.
I did it here in the free zone. I studied it. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Good to know. And so tell us a little bit about your current practice. What do you deliver in your practice? Is it a course room plus auditing? Is it just auditing? What would you say that is? That looks like.
Okay, we have an academy here. It has a course room. We're not a Div 6 people, but people are ready to learn, how to audit. They come in and we have the course room. Ray runs the course room. Um, I have my area, and of course, I do mostly CSing more
Okay.
than I do auditing. So, and I've just learned how to not audit on the net, which I'm not totally but it's better than no auditing. So, yeah.
A lot of people would agree with you. Is the issue that is the latent reads an issue, or what would you say the issue
I
is?
have no trouble with reading the meter. The meter reads just fine on the net. It's
Interesting.
just that sometimes the net decides to be no net in the middle of session.
That could be a problem.
Yeah. If you got an easygoing PC that knows it's the scene and doesn't get upset by it, it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of the things that it's a bit of a trade-off. Like you said, even LRA says that no auditing is better. I'm sorry, any auditing is better than no auditing. So, and especially in
Except
today,
auditing over missed withholds.
right, right,
I put the
correct,
whole sentence there.
true. Um, and in today's world where we have so much technology, I mean, look at us. I'm in New Jersey right now. You're in Washington State, and the fact that we can talk is pretty amazing. And I think that in the future, tech delivery will have to encompass this format going over the internet, or else we're not going to get very far unless we do, I think.
Right.
Right. Okay. Do you deliver anything off of the official grade chart, such as, well, you said the CBR bridge. What about like Infinity or anything else? Or is it more or less just the LRH bridge?
No, I only deliver LRH through OT8, and then I do the CBR bridge. I want to make sure everybody gets at least had it in knots and runs a lot of knots before they do the CBR bridge.
Okay. Now let's go back, travel back in time a little bit to when you first got involved in this great adventure called Dianetics and Scientology.
All right.
Um, I, I know that you have talked about or addressed in some of your writings how you got involved. So, like the brief Cliff Notes version of how did you actually pick up the book, and a little bit of how that was.
Well, I lived in Seattle and I was getting a divorce from my husband who was in Alaska, and I had a year-old daughter. And I was walking down Seattle, in one of the streets of Seattle, and I saw this bookstore. and it had Dianetics and Modern Science and Mental Health, and it looked so interesting to me that I went in and asked how much it cost. It was a big reach. They wanted $4.
Wow.
So I said, no, it's too much. But because I didn't really have a job at the time.
Sure.
So then I went, Christmas came and my uncle Angelo mailed me the book for Christmas. So I sat up Christmas Eve all night reading the book. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, I was having a problem in those days with eyesight, just beginning to, and I'd gotten my first classes and I couldn't get comfortable in them. And I was seeing things moving around on my pages. It was hard for me to concentrate. And by the time I finished reading the book, I no longer had that problem. It was gone.
Wow. Wow. Just from reading the book. Incredible.
Yeah, reading the book, understanding the mechanisms. Yes.
And,
Half the gains are from training.
right. Exactly. Okay. So then you had this big win, obviously reading the book. What happened next? How did you get started actually auditing people?
Oh, well, then, I began to look around to see if I could find some other people. And I moved to Vashon Island. And that's where I started to meet other people who already had read the book, and some of them were co-auditing. So we got some co-auditing going, and just and also visited Seattle a couple of times just to see what the latest news was and so on.
Okay. What was the atmosphere like with these early groups? Was it
Strong interest, and a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun.
question about those days? Because LRA describes clears and making clears in the book as a given that this had occurred. Were you guys clearing each other at that stage, or was it just achieving big releases, or what was happening?
We started out with book one auditing, and then we graduated over to, like, we call an ASC break or something like that, Yeah.
Were you guys producing clears at that time?
Not that early, no. We take, it took a lot of hours in those days to make it clear. I mean, how many hours could we put in?
Right. Okay. So
Oh, I
then,
didn't go clear for, like 7 years of afterwards.
oh, okay. How many hours did you say it took you as far as being a PC?
Well, I think I had probably 500 hours in those days before I went clear. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Okay.
It's
And then
faster now, I think.
I would say so. Yeah, I think so. I think it is a lot faster. What I'm curious about is, so 57 was when you went clear. However, he says that John McMaster's was the world's first clear significantly later, sometime in the mid 60s.
Well, he forgets. Yeah, it was 58 actually, and John McMaster's was 2 or 3 years later, some 61, I think it was. And by that time, he decided that anybody that hadn't run the rock wasn't clear. So we were already properly invalidated and didn't bother us too much because we were clear. So, okay, so he decided not to run step 6 anymore. And the reason for that was that step 6 was a mock-up process. And in some cases, it would make the bank more solid. So they dropped out the step 6 and went on to the rock. It's in the tech dictionary, the rock.
Yeah, I recall it.
Yeah, well, not everybody does.
Right. Okay, so then he kind of moved the goalposts a little bit. LRH himself said,
Oh, yeah, he did that frequently.
why would he do that? Why do you think he moved the goalposts so many times?
Because, like in our ACC, not everybody went clear. He wanted something that you could do that every single person that did it would follow the route and become clear. And it didn't happen. Only half of us went clear. Some of the others got worse off. So
interesting. So
yeah.
I guess you could chalk it up to he was looking for like almost like a silver bullet that would apply to every single case.
Yeah, he did. He was always looking for the one shot clear, even if it wasn't just real fast. It might be a series of things, but he's looking for a way and direction that everyone could be cleared.
Do you think he ever achieved that? or do we have to attack it from different angles, different
We
personalities?
can put all the materials together and you have a good CS and those which to apply to whom. Yes, we can do it.
Okay. It's just not straight book one. It is.
Well, they apparently had some clears on book one, but they weren't the same kind of clears we were.
How do you differentiate? What would be the difference?
Some of the book one clears had never even run an overflow,
Okay. Okay. All right. Here's a viewer question, which is back in the, I guess I'm going back to that same time period, because the 50s was kind of an era, as is portrayed in the media, of innocence, of very straight morals. Men were men, women were women.
What? Where would the street morals come in?
That's what the media portrays. It was like after.
Oh, no. We were a wild bunch. Oh, we were a wild bunch. We were not. I mean, ethics didn't come in until 65, So this is the early 50s, and we were young, and we were doing whatever we did, and we were making friends, and we were auditing, and we were getting married and having babies and all kinds of stuff, and things are going on. And we
Interesting.
didn't have any rules, we were not in the business of changing personalities or anything like that in those days. We were just no rules as in the second dynamic, nothing like that. That was wild. Except you weren't supposed to mess around with your auditor, of course, or your PC, that's not right.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I guess beyond that, it was the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Okay.
Auditor's code still applied, yes.
Sure.
That's the only thing. Everything else was, if it's illegal, it's not a good idea to do
it. Sure. Now, with the ethics tech in like 65-ish appearing, would you say that was a terrible thing for Scientology, or was it kind of needed to rein things in?
It was awful.
Why? What happened?
Well, I was in the Seattle area, and Dorothy Broaded was in charge pretty much of the GO. And she got all these things, and they were looking for suppressives. So they declared about 19 people suppressive, and they were all our top students and our top PCs and, the people that worked around there and were delivering. They declared I didn't get declared. I got declared PTS. But everyone else most everyone got declared suppressive. And so they weren't allowed to have any services, and they weren't allowed to deliver any services. And so I don't know how this org survived.
Did that come from Ron, or was it just people that were power hungry and took his orders and went crazy?
They misunderstood the intent and purpose of ethics. The intent and purpose of ethics is to get tech in. You only use it to get tech in. Otherwise, we don't care what people are doing. That's their business.
Sure. So, and these people were your top tech terminals delivering tech, and all of a sudden they're all wiped out. So that seems like a misapplication of the ethics tech, if you ask me. Okay, so then these people all get declared. How did it get rebuilt, or did it get rebuilt, or was it just?
I don't know, but I want to throw in something here that amused me. In the Seattle org, there came out a period where we apparently weren't being enough of a church to impress the people and the citizens. So Dorothy was in charge of that too. And she had everyone on the staff wearing, a black, turned the back collar and a big black robe. So you walk in there and there's 18 people moving around with these outfits on. I love Dorothy though. She was my PC at one time. So
okay, so you guys became kind of a monastery or something.
Oh my God. I mean, we just cracked up. I mean, no, with the crosses and everything,
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it lasted very long in that environment. As a female Scientologist, this is a viewer question. Were there any prejudices against females, or do you feel like you were less than because you were a woman, either inside the church or outside of it, or was it kind of all?
Absolutely not. No, we didn't even have to deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah, amazing.
It was
Amazing.
a time when we weren't very prejudiced anyway, I mean, people were people. So, and especially when you got into Scientology and you learned body, mind, and spirit, we knew our spirits are just fine, and we all have minds, and the bodies have different shapes, size, colors, or sex, but we're all basically Thetans, so it didn't matter what kind of body we had.
Right. Yeah, I noticed.
Absolutely no, nothing on that.
Yeah, early pictures show, women executives. I haven't seen too many Asians in the old pictures, but black people. Like it didn't seem that there was any kind of.
There weren't too many black people. Ron had one lady that followed him faithfully all through Washington, D.C., and eventually she joined the Sea Org. I don't remember her name, but she was about the only one, but she loved him. She followed him strictly.
Okay. All right, let's go back a little bit to the first time you met Ron. Tell me about that experience.
First time I met Ron. I remember the first time.
How could you not remember the first time? Okay, so let's.
Because the other times were more interesting. It's trying, you see him at a distance, and that's not really meeting him. So, and I have to pick out when did I first meet him. I don't know, because he was around all the time. For 2 months there when I did my ACC.
Sure. So you'd be around and being the guy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's narrow it down to this.
You could go to the restaurant, sit down with him, meet him in the street, and talk to him. It was really open in those days.
So what was your most memorable moment with him, you would say? Let's pick out that moment if you can.
Which one?
Your most memorable moment, just the one that's
I'll give you the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
My ex and I were talking to him up in his office in 1961 for about 15, 20 minutes, just having a good time. And when we left, there was Mary Lou from Chicago, and she's sitting outside the door, and she was really miffed, because apparently she had an appointment. And Ron comes out with he could just say the right thing at the right time. He was so good at it. And he looked, he says, "Oh, Mary Lou, I didn't know it was you waiting out here. I would have been out sooner." And she just melted all the tension that she had, just melted away. "Okay, Ron, it's all right."
So he was charismatic, we could say.
Oh, really charismatic. Yes, he was. Yes, he had a talent.
What would you say, like, if you're going to describe Ron to people, let's say before the whole ethics stuff, let's say, the early days, how would you describe the man?
Outgoing, generally cheerful, interested in everything and anyone, extroverted, and his calm cycle was incredible. His TR4 is something to be wished for.
Got it. Did you ever see him in a bad mood? And if so, what were the circumstances surrounding that?
No, I'd heard about it, and I'd heard how he could get really angry and then with one person and turn around and speak really nice to somebody else. But I didn't see that myself.
So it wasn't, yeah, that's what I thought. It seems like when I ask this question, most people will say, well, it kind of depended on the moment. He would be angry at bluff or messing up a PC or whatnot, direct the force or the anger towards that, and then move on, because he wouldn't carry it with him. He was just simply correcting a person, as opposed to carrying this big massive anger with him.
Exactly.
Okay, so yes. more sane than what a lot of people describe of like. I mean, there's some stories about him after he got injured. He was a pain in the neck for a while, but again, if you're in pain, I can kind of understand that. So we got clear. You went clear. You continued your studies, et cetera, et cetera. Was there a lot of early day talk about processing OTs, or was the focus mostly on just clearing? Or was that kind of the same conversation back
Well,
then?
the early days up to 60 were clearing. We always wanted to go clear, you know. And then later on, it was wanted to go data clear. Well, of course, that was pretty much done. And then we wanted to do clear data clear. And then somewhere along the line, which is really OT nowadays, but the terms got shifted, and then we started looking toward OT1, OT2, and so on. Bridge shifted a little bit, or it actually came into being. It didn't come into being until 1965. No
Yeah.
bridge.
Why do you think that happened? Like, why did clearing some, well, clear was a goal, and then there's other states, and then there was those original OT levels. Some call them the old OT levels, but they're the original OT levels. And then they fell off the bridge, and then they're replaced by the bridge, you know, OT3 through Solonauts and etc.
Yeah, it fell off the RTC bridge. It doesn't fall off of our bridge. We still deliver it.
So you still deliver those original OT levels.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the OT drills. You can't be OT without your OT drills.
Thank you for
So we're
saying that. 'Cause I've
practicing
been like,
OT. What do you do?
what happened to those levels? They're the ones that indicate to me. I don't care about the rest of it. I'm gonna run
What?
it fine, but
You
yeah.
OT3 or above?
I'm sorry.
Are you OT3 or above?
I'm not. I'm familiar with the entire
Hey,
shebang, and I understand I
well,
have to run it. But when I've read those original OT levels, I'm like, this is like working out. This is like skills. This is proactive. I prefer this. And I've always had a little charge on. I can't have them anymore, but that's what I want. You understand?
no, you can have as soon as you get through OT3. If you want to do the old OT4, we'll do it. And unless you've got a drug history, which you might have to do some drugs in between.
Sure. So what is the proper sequence then for the bridge? I asked Trey Lostis, he gave me his recommendation. For you, what would you say from a beginning person, raw meat, all the way up to OT8, and then beyond that, the CBR bridge? What would you say is a
I
proper?
use the one in the CS series. There's only one bridge in the CS series that he ever wrote up. So I use that one.
Okay, so
Modified a little bit because he wrote it before knowing that clears are not to be run on engrams. But,
sure.
you know, you just for that, that's still the best bridge.
Okay, so somewhere in the
I
CS
don't
series.
remember the CS number. It might be 93 RA or something like that. We'd
Okay,
have to look it up.
I'll have to look it up. All right, let me go on to the next viewer question. There's a little bit of a long one. Is there any noticeable difference of pre-1970 and after 1975 in regards to people taking services? Meaning, were they equally pleased? Were the wins the same? Were they euphoric as it seemed they were before, or were they just satisfied? And here's a note that he says. Elrich always said that standard Scientology would be selling itself. People would come in drones. Obviously, that is not the case anymore. Today, they have to get convinced. And this person is kind of demarking pre 1970 and after 70. Did you notice a difference in the wins and the gains people were having pre 1970 versus after?
No, not really.
All the
Uh,
same.
you know, David Mayo was the senior CS in the late 70s. I'm not just sure when he became a senior CS, but when he was during that time, the orgs were booming. You know, there's lots of activity.
Okay.
And
Is
they
there?
had a big briefing course. Now they don't even deliver the briefing course, you know.
Yeah, it's incredible. At what point would you say things really went south?
Well, 1965.
Okay, so that's the point. Well, once the ethics step was brought in.
Ethics got so misunderstood and so misused, and justice was not served. And it was really just a bad scene for so many people. There's so many wrong indications, which gives a lot of wrong indications. Yeah.
So this way predates Miscaviage taking over, which is a lot of people's why, or at least who. But you would place it a lot earlier then. You would place it 65, things started to go a little bad.
Oh yeah, it started earlier than that. I mean, it took a while before it really sunk in, and that many people just couldn't. We believed in Scientology, and we worked with Scientology. We saw the gains, so we would put up with an awful lot. But eventually, it just got to be too much for people. Too many disconnections. I'm like I only have half my family because of that. Not that that's a bad thing. Maybe it worked out really well, but that's by accident, not by intention.
Got rid of a couple of annoying cousins or whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So 65 ethics, that's never really gotten. I mean, he did in 68 supposedly cancel fair game and cancel disconnection, but either that was a PR thing or people lost the memo and they kept going on with it. And it seems to be today one of the primary attack points of critics, which is like disconnection, fair game, etc.
Well, absolutely.
And it seems to be a fair criticism because it's still done. And you said it was misapplied. So tell me in your words, if you were to apply these ethics policies to people, how would you do it differently, or how could we as a group do it differently?
I'd apply the ethics material the way it's written. I mean, there's a gradient scale of ethics. It starts at the top, noticing something that's non-optimum, and then noticing something non-optimum and saying something about it to the person. You've probably seen that bulletin.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd apply that. And if it just somebody is too out of hand, they get a fair treatment. They get a committee of evidence where the people stay awake.
I guess you've experienced otherwise. Could you tell me about that experience?
No, I don't get in those committee of evidences things.
Suffice to say, somebody fell asleep during a comment. I believe it. I once walked into an org courtroom and the supervisor was asleep. So I've seen it all. And I believe it all. Okay, moving right along. Another viewer question. This is kind of a generic one, but Scientology is clearly not flourishing and prospering in the world. Why do you think this is?
Well, they got such terrible PR. I mean, all that mishandled ethics flooded out into the public. So and so can't talk to their daughter. So and so can't talk to their son. People don't like that. They just don't like it at all, and they think it's a cult because we did such weird things. And to the degree we did those weird things, we were a cult. I mean, it was just all wrong items, and that's what's gotten it such a bad reputation. That and the money, of course. The money is sure. The hard wedging, take everything everybody had, mortgage their homes. And then later, after I left, it was donate to IAS or something for no exchange. I mean, it wasn't even putting you on advance accounts. It was just, here, take it. And I don't know what they did with it.
Yeah, just gonna have a slush fund, some massive pile of money. Okay, so if let's say somebody magically waved a magic wand and said, "You're now COB RTC," what would you do to fix this?
What would I do to fix it?
Yeah, let's say you're
they wouldn't let me in.
Magic wand we're talking about. They said, "Okay, Patricia, you are in charge. You have Willie to help you. You have Trey Lots to help you."
I'd probably learn the language first thing, so I could talk to somebody.
Sure. A lot of acting. But seriously, what do you think would have to happen for us to move forward with
I think what we're doing now is pretty good. We just hatting people and auditing people. And there's so many people that are OT that are auditing. And I think it's making an effect on the planet. You see an awful lot of crazy stuff on this planet. Well, I just feel that's stuff blowing off. It's being
okay?
dramatized, it's being blown off because so many people are auditing and they're putting in orders maybe too fast. It's blowing off. And so it looks terrible, but I do think we're having an effect.
The one thing which is a little crazy is the fact that it just seems to be dramatized so much and so fast, and it seems to be
Oh,
accelerating.
it's horrible. Yeah, the
Accelerating.
dramatization is incredible. This society looks like it's going crazy.
Very crazy and almost exponentially crazy. Like I'm not
Yes.
seeing an exponential pullback yet. I'm seeing like an exponential lunacy where every day it's just like compared to 20 years ago, even this is madness, like exponentially crazy. Okay, so then one of the things that we could say here, if we're gonna have an action item, is get up the bridge and address your solo knots case, particularly because that's going to cause a lot of ripple effects on the fourth dynamic. Yes?
Yes, one step at a time. But if you go clear, get through the no interference zone. It's important.
Yep. I'm going to move very fast through there. I've gotten the message several times, and I think it's time for me to get through there. So, moving right
You're
along.
clear.
Yeah. Is Scientology the complete picture, or do people need something more in their life? That's a viewer question.
Well, of course, you need more in your life. I mean, Scientology is a body of knowledge that you use to handle life with. It's, you would still want to live. If you have a body, you're still going to have second dynamics and third dynamics and fourth dynamics. I mean, that goes along with having a body. Can't help
Yeah.
that.
That's good. I think this question was asked, and I'll relate. When I was on staff, it seemed like there were kids running around, not even going to school. And in the Sea Org, the cadet org, these kids weren't getting a lot of education. And there was a datum kind of floating around, not specific to a terminal, just as like a datum that floats around, like, well, you're not even learning anything real when you go to college and school anyway. So that mindset was like, all we need is Scientology. And it made it very cult-like and very unreal because I'm like, well, it doesn't teach you about how to do your taxes, how to market, or things like that. So you need other information. Nutrition is one thing. How Elrich was actually way ahead of the time because he was one of the first people that I've ever read, as far as dates, going back in dates, to warn about sugar and carbohydrates. So he was way ahead. So I think you can find a lot in Scientology, but of course, like you said, you do need just general life skills. And I think that's been missing in a lot of church staff members, where they're just focused on studying the bridge, or not even that, they're just working, and then they leave staff or they leave the Sea Org, and now they're unprepared for life. It's not good. I think we all need to um, use, for example, study tech to learn other skills, to learn how to better get a job, or handle your body, or become a better doctor, etc. Scientology is not the end all be all. It is a part of life, a big part, because it handles a lot, but you need other stuff.
Right. Not everybody wants to be a professional Scientologist.
Right. Some people just want to apply it to their life and get better and be an actor or a singer or whatever they want.
I think the biggest shock I ever had was when I discovered that not everybody wanted to go clear. I just assumed that anybody heard about clear, they would reach for it and want it and go after it and improve themselves. And one of my ex-husbands told me, not everybody wants to go clear. I said, what? couldn't believe it. But I watched people and I saw that not everybody did want to go clear. So the brightest among us easily take to us, you know. They do. They like Scientology. As soon as they see the information, they'll say, oh, this is improved therapy, for instance, over what we were taught. You know, well, this obviously works better and faster. They'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So another viewer question. How do I sum this up? It's a bit of a long one. Okay. So the general gist of this question is, with all of Ron's tech that he developed, he has all these tools at his disposal. He's already reached a great level of ability personally as a being. Why wasn't Miscaviage detected and handled, given that Ron even developed the PTSSP tech? Like, how did this man assume power when he clearly was not good for Scientology?
I have no idea. I know I was there in the Sea Org in LA when I first met Miscaviage. I didn't meet him personally, but he was talking to us as a group, you know. And there was a very sense of closed, all the auditors and tech people kind of closed into a group. They didn't want to have anything to do with him, you know. They just kind of shut him out as best they could and went on about their business. He wasn't really that tech trained, and that's the problem, you know.
Yeah.
He knows best.
Yeah. Trey made a good observation where he said he just doubles down on his wrong whys. Like, even though stats, he figures out a why stats go down, and he's like, nope, I'm doubling down. And he's almost inverted the bridge. He's taking the OTs and making them go down and out, out the bottom of the bridge instead of at the top. What are your thoughts on the man? Are we ever going to get rid of this guy or what?
Well, he lied to me, so I have nothing to do with him. I don't. People lie to me; they're not my friend. And he tried to pass off that RJ. I don't remember what it was, 36 or something, and came out in 1983, the New Year's Eve one, and it was supposed to be Ron on it, and it wasn't Ron on it, unless it was a Ron that had had a stroke and just was. I mean, it wasn't the Ron I knew. It was simply not Ron on it. And I'd heard hundreds of tapes, you know, and it wasn't Ron. And I talked to him personally, and that was not Ron. It could be that he'd been injured, you know, because sometimes people have brain damage. They don't sound like themselves. But I couldn't put up with the way the missionaries there were talking to him. They talked down to him like he was a baby. Now, Ron, he would never have put up with that, much less put it into a tape. And so I no sooner got down there to join Sea Org when I hear this tape, and I go, what is this? And then I knew right away that Miscaviage was lying to me. So he got off on a bad foot with me right away.
Which tape are you referring to?
I think it's RJ 36, but I won't swear to it. It was the one from January 1983.
Let me make a note of this. I'm not sure if I heard that. January 83.
They were discourteous to him, in my way of thinking. Nobody ever talked to him like that.
So what do you think happened in those final days? Because I might discover more data as I talk to more people and do more research, but it seemed like he had an accident while he was overseas on the ship. That was the beginning of some bad times for everyone, with Ron dramatizing his case big time, not applying tech to himself for some reason, just being miserable, strapped to a chair and abusing his messengers, followed by the whole geo thing. Well, getting kicked out of several ports, all those flaps, the geo thing, Quentin dying, and then the whole mission holders conference, and Miscaviage taking over and Mayo getting booted. Pat Any Broker getting booted, Bill Frank get like it just seemed like a lot. If you're gonna talk about pulling stuff in, Ron pulled in a lot of stuff during those last years. Do you have any insight as to why you think that was?
Oh
PTSD?
no, I wasn't even there then. I've been out in the field for 30 years, you know. I've been out free zone for 30 years. So I hear a little bad news once in a while from the church, but I don't get into it. It's not,
Okay.
I couldn't give you an answer to that. But I don't think the way he died was the way that they say he died.
How do you think he died?
And the way I understand it from the rumor line I got, which went from Ray Robles, from Dr. Dan, that Ron was in the motorhome when they were in Vegas, and that he died in the motorhome. They came back from gambling and found him there and rushed back to um, California and took it from there. That's the story I had, and I think it sounds more logical than anything else I've heard.
So that he died in a motorhome in California, or yes,
No, Nevada.
in
He
Nevada.
died in Nevada, and they had to hurry him home.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard anyone say that.
Well, not many people have heard it.
So, and again, it's a rumor line, so we don't, we have to put these things together, and that's kind of the
Yeah,
purpose of this.
but I believe, Ray Robles is pretty accurate. And certainly if he says that Dr. Dunk told him that, I believe he did.
Why was he in Nevada? What was he doing there?
They were gambling. He Miscaviage.
And they had Ron with him just as a tag
Oh,
along?
they had to look after Ron, yeah, yeah. Ron lived in the motorhome. So they took the motorhome and all. Went there to have some fun.
Wow. And do you think Ron was just basically neglected then?
Well, he's probably, I don't know if he's neglected. I think if they were taking care of him. But if a person dies, they die. Can't help that.
Well, very interesting that we have a data that maybe he was in Vegas and then taken over to California and
Vegas or Reno, I'm not sure now.
somewhere in
I
Nevada.
think Reno.
Reno. Okay.
It's been a long time since I heard that story. It might have been Reno,
Okay.
but it
All
was
right.
definitely Nevada.
All right. I'm gonna scroll right along here. Okay. A little bit more of Theta subject here. What was the most memorable or biggest win that you can recall one of your PCs or pre-OTs ever experiencing?
Biggest win my PC's had?
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness. Biggest win. That's almost impossible, because they each get wins. It's easier to ask for my biggest win, you see, than ask others, because there were certainly hundreds of wins to look through to choose
Sure.
which one was what. And after they have the wins, I don't usually keep the wins around. I just sort of put them in the folder and leave them there.
Gotcha. All right. So let's flip the question. What's one of your biggest wins as a PC?
OT3. I loved OT3. OT3 made the difference. I was a city girl. I couldn't grow a carrot. I had no luck with the fifth dynamic at all. And I was used to the city. Went to junior high school in the city, LA. And when I did OT3, apparently I had my fourth dynamic and my fifth collapsed on each other. And somehow or other they separated out. And I had a whole new world. I had a fifth dynamic. And I changed from a city girl to a country girl. And, a year later, I had 64 little piglets and chickens and rabbits and redworms. And it was I just really next to going up the bridge, having that little mini farm was probably the most fun I ever had. I really liked it. I'm starved for that sort of thing because I had shut myself off from the fifth dynamic so much. And here all of a sudden it was all open to me and it could just come to me and I could have it. And there it was,
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Sounds amazing. Compare that to when you went clear, bigger wins, different kind of win, different order of magnitude. What would
Bigger win.
Bigger win.
Clear was a great win. I mean, it was a fun because the others were going clear at the same time, so we had Ray Kemp there going clear and a lot of people that maybe. And it was fun because Ron checked us out, he did the clear check, asked us questions, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. All right. And let's compare that OT3 moment to hitting the EP of Solonauts. Same, bigger?
Well, after you get off the thrill of being able to do something that you couldn't do before, which is really a wonderful win. I don't think everybody has that kind of win on OT3, but I did, so I'll take that one. I like the wins on the upper levels because there's a stability there. There's just the way you just live through life and you're not getting upset or if you do have a really bad upset, it's like gone in a minute. It's the freedom to be oneself and know one's position in life.
Very cool. The reason I asked, I just kind of wanted to emphasize that, like, you have your big wins, but there's always more. There's always more ability, more freedom, more expansion available.
Things happen. Yeah, interesting things occur. That's true.
Yeah. All right. Next question, it's kind of similar. There's another viewer question. I want to clarify that. Wildest or craziest experience as an auditor?
Oh, well, that would be in 1952. Well, I have two of them. We had a fellow named Buzz who was going to be an auditor and show us how to audit. And I was there, and Evelyn was there, and Bill Fisk was there. And Bill Fisk was the PC, and he was laying on the bed, and he was being put through an engram. And this PC says, don't touch my ankles. Don't touch my ankles. He's talking out of the engram, right? And that darn Buzz, who should have known better, decides to go over and reach for his ankle. And he touched his ankle. And Bill came bolt right up out of the engram, grabbed a plate that was there, broke it, threw it at Evelyn, got her in the shoulder with his
Yeah.
So there was Buzz having to handle Evelyn. I mean, he was supposed to be the auditor to handle Bill, but no, he had to handle Evelyn because she's bleeding. And so I took Bill over and kind of got him all sorted out and calmed down as best I could, Yeah. Bill Fisk was a well-known name in those days. He used to run the Seattle org.
Okay. All right. So
that was 10 years later that he ran the Seattle org. This was Bill in the raw.
So green raw meat Bill, I guess. Okay, so what's the other story? You said you had a couple of them.
Oh, well, I was auditing Evelyn on an engram, and we had the Mathison, the old black box, And as far as I knew, this Mathison did not give electric shocks. It's supposed to have been safe plugged in. So we have running her through an engram with Mathison, and she sits bolt upright and she said, just got electric shock. And I said, okay, continue. Which was the wrong thing to do. She says, I just got electric shock. And I thought she was talking out of the incident, I was trying to get her through the incident.
Right.
Did about 3 times, and she got so mad at me, she threw the cans at me. Because she had a real shock, and I didn't realize it. And so, of course, my tier
4 was out.
4 was out. Yeah, that was pretty sad.
Wow.
Yes.
When the meter came out, what was your impression about it? Was it a new weird
The
thing?
big black box.
Say that
Yeah,
again?
I didn't understand it too well.
Did it help eventually once you got used to it, or were you always kind of
Well, Mathison didn't really do much except act like a showpiece. I didn't really know anything about the Mathison. We just had it on and watched the thing move a little bit, you know. Didn't mean anything. We didn't, those days, you know, we didn't do admin. We didn't have CSs, you know. It was simple. We sat down with PC and ran the PC on whatever was popular, which might be the next bulletin that Ron wrote, or we'd run him on something he was interested in, which worked better.
right, right, right. Okay. Um, any part of the tech that you feel has been kind of lost, where with like the new great charts and whatnot, that are valuable processes that you wish would be more better known or used, or that you
Well,
have
there's
used?
one that I got run on. I found it to be a wonderful process. 1956. It was an 8C, you know, it's in the wall. Look at that wall, walk over to it, touch it. With your hand on the wall, see, what was it? Gosh, forgotten. Make it more solid or something, or make it less solid. I'll have to look. I have to review that when I have more time. I've forgotten right now. I just don't have it available.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what happened is that the walls kind of got thin, and we're on the second story, so the walls were thin, and I'm looking. Oh, you know, and then they get more solid, and I feel okay. And then we run this process. The hand on the wall, you had another command. And I'm not sure if it was make it more solid or keep it from going away or what, but it was something like that. Put your hand out there.
I think I know what you're talking. I think yeah, it's something. I don't remember the exact commands either, but there's an
But
additional.
it was mixed with the opening procedure of 8C
Right, right,
with the other command. Yeah, it
right.
was a great process, OT process. Oh, the ones in the co-auditor's handbook, those are wonderful processes. Everybody should be run on those.
Okay, good to know. What about black and white, certainty processing, creative
I really
processing?
never cared too much about it. I used it for assist once and it worked, but I just didn't really much interested in black and white.
Okay, where do you think GPM fits into all this? Because that was kind of like a big part of the briefing course and very important. And then suddenly, whoop, we don't we don't run it anymore, really. Besides,
Well, Ron says the real way to OT is through one's own GPMs. That's what he stated on this bulletin. I know a lot about GPMs. I know we use the GPM tech on the L's a lot. And the L's are boosters, you know, they're basically designed for a rougher case. It's, you know, needs a little boost so we can go through easier.
yep.
But I think it's best used after OT3. I think the OT3 people get the most out of it. But it's not really necessary to the bridge. I got lost for it. What was the question again?
Regarding addressing GPMs, I know that yes, you're a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
on the L's, but as far as like he placed a lot of weight on it, did a lot of research, and then it seemed
Well, I'll tell you, there's an awful lot of understanding there about, you know, when I'm CSing a case, sometimes I have to dig into that knowledge of the GPM in order to handle the case in front of me, because not every case comes in at the same level, especially since we've been doing knots for years. You know, new group comes in and they're already aware. You know, they're not to the bottom of the bridge or just being totally human like most people were when I grew up, you know. Although when I grew up, we didn't have drugs. So that was a good thing. And that's it.
okay. All right. Right along. Are you doing good energy wise? You're fine. We can continue going on for a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. Yeah,
I'll take
absolutely.
my coffee.
Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, you are a wealth of knowledge. This is exactly what I anticipated and what I wanted. So thank you.
Well, experience.
Thank you.
It's been in, I've been in is what, 71 years.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah. I
Wow.
spent half my time in and half my time out. Okay, your turn.
All right. When Ron talks about supernatural things like reading minds, moving objects with beams, knowing by pervading, etc., do you feel he was overstating things, or was he describing actual potentials he observed?
Potential. Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever actually get there?
Well, I'm a little soured on it myself. Not because of the, because it's not that important. You see, my ex-husband, one of my ex-husbands, was very OT in the sense he could do things, like he could move objects. He's always slamming windows shut and knocking purses off onto the floor and stuff like that. He spent a lot of time in bed figuring out how to do this sort of thing and was having a lot of fun with it. But he wasn't working, and he wasn't earning any money, and the kids were going hungry. So I don't have respect for that kind of thing. I mean, that's not my idea of what I want in an OT. So he was very OT. He could, I saw him take his leg one time and unhook all the muscles down to the bone and then hooked back up again. Because at one time he'd had polio, so he had had a thin leg, and he had recovered from that through auditing it, cover the use of the leg through auditing. And so he had the leg in use, but he also could still take it down, put it back up. You know? It was really fascinating to watch.
So he was OT, but also kind
So
of
he was
amazing.
OT in the sense he could do, you call them tricks? I don't know.
Weird little tricks, but nothing
Yeah,
like.
he can move best, he can move best. He dropped the first time I saw him do it, he dropped a little match into an ashtray that was on the floor, and it missed and it bounced onto the floor. And I was going to reach over and pick it up and put it back into the ashtray. And the thing just bounced back into the ashtray. And I looked at him and said, "Hey," I said, "I didn't do that. So you did that." Oh, he laughed. He thought he was so funny. He chuckled and chuckled. He was found out. Yeah, it was a good
Interesting.
uphill days. I don't have respect for an OT just because they can bend a spoon or something. That's not my idea of OT. I want people that can create postulates that stick, that are useful, like abundance for all would be a good postulate, that type of thing, so that we can have a better planet. I don't want somebody showing off. I mean, I can watch magic trick show and have as much fun.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Good point. With all of your experience, do you see any ways in which Scientology tech can be improved?
No, not really. The tech itself, if it's done properly, is pretty good.
Have you had any?
Improvement, auditor improvement comes with more knowledge and more understanding. That you start an auditor at the bottom, he can only handle the bottom because he doesn't have enough understanding of the next levels and so on. You have to move them all up. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Did I answer the question?
I think so. As an aside, I see on some of the Scientology groups people trying to develop their own processes, ostensibly based on LRH writing, which I see in my personal viewpoint of like you're trying to correct the tech, but he invented the tech and he's pretty much perfected it. So I'm not sure what.
That's pretty much a Q&A.
Yeah. So now let's go back to the CBR bridge because Ron didn't write that. So
Right.
help me understand why people should
Because
do it.
Ron did try to get his class 8s to be able to carry on the research. They were supposed to be able to do that. They should have enough knowledge of class 8 to invent a process that was workable. And Captain Bill, there's only two captains, Captain Bill and Mary Sue. They were the only two that were ever captains. And he was a class 8, so I don't know how much of it he did himself.
Okay. All right. Another question here is, with your experience and your knowledge, and I guess you have a pretty solid KSW viewpoint. How was it that you and Trey Lotz and a couple of other guys got mixed up with this LRH 2.0 character? And if you learned any lessons from that whole shebang?
Well, that was quite a. He was sent to me by Craig down there in California. Craig has passed on now. And Craig said that there's something different about this guy. And so he sent him up to me. And the funniest thing is, years later, he said he apologized for sending him up. So apparently he was trying to pull a big joke on me or something. I don't know.
Oh, God.
But I got this guy. He comes in and he's a past lifer. He knows he's a past lifer. And I sit him down in the meter and he's sitting there at 3.0 with a totally floating needle, right at 3.0. And so I thought, people just don't come off the street in this kind of shape. This is something different, thinks I. So I went and took him all through his, a repair, which he didn't need much repair. I took him through a return program where we rehabbed everything, all the grades and everything. Everything floated. This guy was just a dream of a PC. I mean, just wow, And so I tested him to clear, which was fine, and I put him through a lot of other stuff. And also he went through the grades as an auditor, trained really fast. I mean, this guy went through and he could apply it, do it, and apply it. It was amazing. So then eventually I was going to put him on, because we did all of our bridge, I was going to put him on the CBR bridge. And I told him, okay, do Excal. Well, he didn't do the check sheet. And he tried to do Excal. And then he told me how bad Excal was. So I said, okay. And the next thing I know, he's trying to figure out who he was last life. It was he Red Sharp, a guy from England, or he was there, obviously there in the valence, in some valences, but he didn't know who was who. And then later on, all on his own, he comes to me and he says, I am L. Ron Hubbard. And he went to the examiner and he says, I'm L. Ron Hubbard. And he's sitting at 3.0 with a big old wide floating needle. So what am I going to say? I mean, I didn't audit him to L. Ron Hubbard, but then he thought he was. So then he figured out, well, if I was L. Ron Hubbard and I was going to get everything going here, what would I do first? He said, I'd change my name. So he went and changed his name to L. Ron Hubbard so he could really be L. Ron Hubbard, and went on from there. But he was off my auditing lines. He had been for quite a while. And they come in every day and visit. And he dumped a lot of stuff on me. Dump. Criticism, evil intentions. What the heck is all of this stuff, Yeah. So I just watched it and listened and okayed, that sort of thing. And we had a nice chat every day, but there was always something. Negative, really negative. So I don't know. I finally I had to get him out because he's getting menacing. He pushed Ken Ropa against the door. Ken's an older man, pushed him hard. And Ken said, hey, he was lucky to get away with that, he says, because if anybody been there to witness, I would have pulled out my knife and slit him. He's an ex-vet.
Oh, wow.
And I told Ron that later, and he says, you mean people carry knives? I said, yeah. They do.
Wow.
Because he's an ex-prisoner, he's taught you don't carry knives.
Right.
Funny. So anyway, I felt better when he started, because some of the stuff he wrote was okay, but some of it really didn't have any good effect particularly. I did 100 hours of his infinity process, and it worked well. And I did get something very much out of this next process. I don't remember exactly how it went. It was good, but the one on languages did nothing. Didn't work, and I was really interested in any block I had on learning languages, and it did nothing for me. So I'm like, what the hell is this? Some of it works, some of it doesn't. So I was a little uncomfortable with it. So when he called it Asperianism, I was very much happy that I said, okay, he's not doing Scientology, he's doing something else, he's calling it something else. And I was very much relieved for that. And see, he slapped around a PC, not as a PC, a person who came here to study, I guess, was a student. No, he was training as an auditor is what he was. He was training as an auditor. And he came in and started telling Ron what to think about this and that, because he was a little self-righteous, I want to say. And Ron just slapped him open-handed, knocked him silly. I mean, it's just like, whoa, he almost passed out. It was that bad.
Wow.
And so on. So I didn't want him around. He was too dangerous, too menacing. He was an environmental menace, which means he's heavily PTS and headed towards depressive, and I didn't want him around anymore. He went else places, and didn't want him around either after a little bit. So I don't understand it all. Here's a guy who comes in and leaves my auditing just doing fine. I mean, you trained, and this stuff on LRH all came in after that. First he thought he was Red Sharp, and then he thought, no, he's LRH. So I don't know what was going on in his mind.
Sounds like an out list. He's literally listing for what valence.
It might have been a self-out listed list. Yeah, could have been.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like, because he's listing, trying to find it wrong item, and boy does he spin after that. You know what I mean? Maybe. But I thank you very much for your candor with that, because that's been a topic that the field has been like, oh, what's the deal? And that clarifies a lot for me, as far as like, wow, this guy has all the indications of being relatively okay and sane, and something that none of us are privy to happened. And that's when trouble started. Because I didn't know that he didn't come in already all crazy. I thought that in front of you was like, hi, I'm LRH, and you're like, okay.
You sure didn't do that.
Okay, thank you for that. That's going to clear up a lot. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to share as far as your entire history? This is going to be seen hopefully for hundreds of years after both you and I are in different locations, different bodies, who knows. But I wanted to leave something for the next generation, from the viewpoint of people that actually lived it. Because I imagine how cool it would be if we had like a videotape of somebody who knew Jesus or Muhammad or some other great religious figure that was actually there, as opposed to having to rely on documents written hundreds or thousands of years later. And you were there. You lived it. You were there from the beginning. And
pretty much.
So is there anything else that you think people would be interested in knowing about the evolution of Dianetics and Scientology?
The only thing I can say is Scientology works. It really can change your life. It can take you from what's ruining you all the way up through clear, which is sort of they call it a homo novus, new being, new state of being instead of homo sapiens. And it can go further. It's worth looking into, but don't get mixed up with the church, because they got money first, They have to keep that church going. They have to feed all those people. They have to pull in the money, and they are hard sell. And then they don't always give you what you want. I mean, if a person comes in to get auditing, it should be have something to do with what he's interested in, not just routinely put him up a bridge that he has no interest in. That wouldn't work.
Sure.
Okay, so that's all I can really say.
Okay. Was there one point where you doubted that it worked, or was it always from the moment you stepped in to now, you always were convinced that it worked?
No, I've never doubted that Scientology works. There were moments of doubt that I was doing exactly the right thing for the PC at a time or another, but those usually got sorted out pretty good.
Okay. Now you're 92. You don't look 92.
91.
You're 91.
I'm not even 91 and a half. That's what I told you.
I gotta do another correction then. So you're 91, not even 91 and a half. Okay.
That's right.
I apologize for that. You look at least 20 years younger, in my opinion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What do you plan to do next lifetime? What do you have any goals? Do you think you're gonna continue to be
No, I'm going to finish out this one. I have so much to do this lifetime, and I haven't had much attention put on what I'm going to do next lifetime. And I think I'll just play it by ear. I think
okay?
I'll just die and take a look around, see what's available, and do a non-existence formula if I have to somewhere. Maybe I'll find some others that are out and have a different game that I'd like to play. I don't know if I want the body game again because it's so much fun to have a body, but God, it's got such liabilities and it can hurt so bad. So no, I don't. I'm not sure the body game is something I want to continue.
Understood.
But I'm not totally unsure either. I
Gotcha.
might pick up a body or two.
You get a body the next lifetime and all that stuff. What do you
Maybe two or
think?
three bodies. That might be fun.
Yeah, right. Little ant colony of people.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah, right. Like one body isn't trouble enough. Where do you think LRH is right now?
I thought he went to a dramata. I don't know. That was just my own impression.
Okay, fair enough. Then one last question for you is, what message do you have for those who are very disaffected, who have lost their way due to bad experiences and have fallen off the bridge? What do you want to say to those people?
They should call me up and answer the question, why don't you want auditing?
There you go.
Until it's flat.
Great interview, Pat. You're a doll. You're amazing. Great energy, and I'm again truly honored to have been given this chance to spend a little time with you. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point because I do have other questions that are floating around, but I didn't get a chance to write them down. So maybe we'll do another part, and we can delve in a little bit deeper into some of your experiences. But as of right now, this has been an amazing time. And I thank you very much for your time. This is
and I thank you for such a privilege.
You're very welcome.
I mean, I'm getting a free video. Wow.
Yes, and many
I'll do something to you someday.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Pat. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.